In part 1, we used Tkinter to create the graphic user interface of this Python unit converter GUI application. This is part 2, and we're gonna add all the commands and validation to start using it. By the way, before you get started, if you're here, I'm sure you want to become a programmer, and yes, here on YouTube you can learn a lot, but one of the best ways to actually improve, especially if you want to turn this into a career, is to take some courses made by experts in the field. Usually these courses are structured in a way that makes it easier for you to learn properly, and I've selected for you some of the best courses and learning platforms. You'll find the links in the description down below, and by using those links, you're gonna help this channel as well. So this is what we've done in part 1. So we've created the graphic user interface like this, but of course nothing works. You can enter whatever and nothing works, of course. So in this video, we're going to do the validation and also the whole thing. So first of all, we want to validate the entry so that the user can only enter numbers and not letters and other characters. So let's define the function to do this validation. So we're going to go up here and I'm going to create the function. So value validation, I'm going to pass the value and you'll see what this value is in a second. As you can see, this is not a method of the class. This is just a simple function inside of the createWidgets method. So let's pass for now, like that. So to be able to use this function to validate the entry, we need to register it and save the result to a variable. And then we can use this result in the validate command of the entry. Let's actually see what I mean. So first of all, let's register the function. So value validation command, just going to call it like that. Container values, register. I'm just using the container to register it like that. And then here, as you can see, I'm still using a local variable. I'm not using self, but just a local variable. And of course, I need to go down here now and write something like validate key, which means that whenever the user enters something, the validation will take place, and then we're going to set the function to run by using the validate command like that. This is a tuple. The first value is the validate validation command, which is this one, okay, which is what is returned by the register method. And then here, p like this. I'm not going a lot into what the P is, etc., but basically each time the user tries to enter a character, okay, in the entry, the value with the new character appended at the end is passed to a validation function, and that's why we added the value parameter to the value validate function. So we actually added this thing here because this is passed automatically by the validate command here. So let's actually see an example. So let's say that you already have 1, 2 in the entry, and you press A. In the entry, you still see 1, 2, and this value here is the value that you would have if you allowed the change, basically. So this is the value that is going to be passed to this function here. So value in this case is going to be 1, 2, A, which is basically represented by the P down here, okay? So as I said, the entry is still 12, and this is the value that the entry would have if you allowed the change, as I said. In this case, 1, 2, A is not allowed because this is not a number. So in the value validation, in this case, you need to return false, okay? So you return false like this. By returning false, the A is ignored and the entry will still be 12. Okay, so nothing changes basically. But now let's say that you have 1, 2, and then you try to enter 4, for example, okay? And this is passed to this function again as the value. In this case, you need to return true because 1 to 4 is a number and it's allowed. In this case, you need to return true. As you've returned true, then the 4 is actually written in the entry, and the entry now has the value 1 to 4. I hope that makes sense. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So let's delete this. So now that you know what the P is, etc., we actually need to write something in the validate function, in the value validation function, because otherwise we don't validate anything. So the first thing that we need to do is if not value, return true. And we need to do this because otherwise an empty value won't be valid and you won't be able to delete all the characters in the entry. So if you don't do this and you have, let's say, 1, 2, you delete the 2 and you have 1. If you try to delete the 1, you would end up with an empty string, and if the empty string is not valid, you wouldn't be able to actually delete the 1. By the way, if you're liking the video and you want to help me keep creating content like this, you can support me and also get exclusive perks on Patreon, link in the description if you want to check that out, and thank you so much for the support. Then, we need to try and see if we are able to actually convert the value to a float. If we are not, we'll get the value error and we return false, because in this case, if you are not able to actually convert the number, that means that you have some characters that prevent this. So basically, going back to the example, there would be 1 to A, that would throw an error because 1 to A is not convertible to float, and you return false and you don't allow the change basically. If you don't get any error, then you need to return true because you want to allow the change. So Fabio from the future here. I was actually editing the video and I found this little bug because I was checking if everything was working as expected and something is not working as expected. So I just wanted to add this little update so that your program is going to work as expected. So basically this is something to do with the minus, because when it comes to temperature, you can have negative numbers like -5, -10, etc. So in this case, when you try to enter the minus, for example, as you can see here, this wouldn't be convertible to a float, so the function will return false, as you can see here. And of course, this wouldn't be allowed and you wouldn't be able to add the minus. So you would have to add the 5 like that, and then you would have to go like that and add the minus later, because the 5 is convertible and the -5, the whole thing here is convertible. But when you start with the minus like that, this wouldn't be convertible, so this is not possible basically. And the same thing applies when you try to delete. So you've got the -5, you try to delete the 5, you would end up just with the minus, and this wouldn't be possible. So how can we actually fix that? This is quite easy. We just need to add this little thing here. So instead of just if not value, or value is equal to the minus. So when the value is just an empty string or the value is just the minus, you return true and that's it. You can actually enter it and that's fine. Really important, later on we're going to have to change a little thing even in the convert value function, but don't worry, I'm going to add a little video there as well. I didn't want to actually redo the whole thing, the whole video, just for this little mistake, because I actually wanted to show you that everyone makes mistakes and you can check and check and check and check, but there is always going to be a mistake or a bug, etc. Don't worry about it, just fix it and that's it, because I see a lot of beginners worrying that, oh my gosh, I keep making mistakes, etc., etc. This is normal, so don't worry about it. So now that this is fixed, let's go back to the original video. Now we can actually try and see what we get. So let's actually try to run 1, 2, let's delete everything. I want to show you what would happen if I didn't have this one. So as you can see, now I have 1, 2, I delete the 2, and then as you can see, I cannot delete it. So this is really, really important. And also, let's say I want to add the A. As you can see, I'm actually pressing the A, but it doesn't work, just a number. So this is a validation. So let's now add the functionality, otherwise the little app doesn't do anything. So first of all, we need to connect a string var to the converted value entry, so that we can actually set it and show the result to the user. So let's go down here, converted value entry, this one here, and up here we're going to do something like self.value, and let's actually change the name here and call it entry converted, and down here entry converted value, so that here we can use converted value for the actual value. So tk string var like this, and then of course we need to use it down here and do something like text variable self converted value like this. So this value here is going to be the text variable here, and by doing this, every time we set a new value to the string var, it'll be shown in the entry automatically, even though it's disabled. So let's now create a function with all the conversions. So let's now add the method to convert the value. So this is going to be here because this is actually a class method. Convert value self and event, like that. Perfect. We actually need the event here because it's automatically passed by Tkinter, so you need it there even if you don't use it, because otherwise you would get an error. Now we need to get the conversion from the option menu. So conversion is going to be self conversion get, because this is a string var, so you need to use get to get the value, and if not value to convert get, like that. And now if we deleted all the values in the entry, we would have an empty string, so we actually want to set the string var to an empty string, so nothing will be shown as the result on the entry on the right. So self converted value set an empty string, and then we can exit the method without converting anything, like that. And now we can convert the string in the entry to a float, and I'm sure it's convertible because I've already validated it. So I validated in the validation function before, so I'm sure that this is convertible. So value convert local float value to convert get, like this. So Fabio from the future again. As I said in the little update during the validation, where we actually added the minus, we need to change a few things here as well in the convert value function, because here I was assuming that the value to convert was always convertible to float, but in this case, since we added the minus alone is not convertible to float, and this would throw an error. So basically we just need to add something like this. So up here we need to add something like self value to convert get is equal to the minus. So basically when the value to convert is equal to an empty string or the minus, you just set the converted value, so the entry on the right, to an empty string, and you return. So this is not run and you're not going to get the error basically. So you just need to add that little thing and you're good to go. So back to the original video. And once we have the value and the conversion to do, we can find the converted value. Here I'm going to use the match statement. This is the most basic use case, but I've actually made a complete guide about all the things you can do with the match statement, and there are quite a lot. I highly recommend you go and watch it after this one to learn more about it. I'll leave the link in the description box down below and in the cards up above if you want to do so. So match conversion is going to be case miles, that. So self converted value set is going to be an f string, and it's going to be value to convert local times 0.62. Then I'm going to format it like that. These are of course the values in the option menu that we actually added to the list of conversions at the beginning of part 1. Then I'm going to actually copy and paste these. Don't know how many, like that. I think this is fine. So this is going to be mile, kilometers, then kilograms, pounds, kilograms, Celsius, and also F, like that. And of course we need to change those, otherwise this is not going to work. So 61, this is going to be 2.22, like that. Then here, like this. Then this is a little bit more complex, so I'm going to do something like this. Minus 32 divided by 1.8, and then here is going to be times 1.8 plus 32. I hope that everything is fine, but I think so. And also, of course, we need to make sure the function is called when we enter something, okay? So, of course, we need to actually, up here, value to convert, grid. So, self value to convert, bind. I'm going to bind the key press. So, key press self convert value like this. So when the user presses a key to enter something in the entry on the left, the convert value function is going to be called, but there is actually a huge problem. This method is called before the validation takes place and before the value is actually assigned to the entry. So when the method is called, the entry value has not been updated yet. So we are basically always one step behind. So let's print something in the convert value method to help you understand. So let's go down here, convert value. Down here, we're going to add something like print self value to convert get, and then also print. Let's do something like that. Let's also add something to the validation to show you that it's run after. So let's actually go up to the validation. Okay, here, so value validation, and I'm going to actually print just print validation, something like that. So let's actually see what we've got. So let's say that we press 1. As you can see here, you don't get validation 1, etc. You get an empty string and then the validation. Why? Because the convert value method is called before the validation takes place and also before the actual value 1 is written in the entry. So basically, this is one step behind. And as you can see, if you press 2, you get 1 because the convert value function is called and then the value is updated. So this is the old value, and then the validation takes place, and then the 2 is added to the entry, okay? But then when you press 3, for example, then the convert value is called before the 3 is added to the entry, so you get 1, 2, and not 1, 2, 3, and then the validation, and then you have the updated value in the entry, etc., etc. So you basically, when you call convert value, you are calling convert value with the old value of the entry and not the new value of the entry, if that makes sense. And as you can see here, you've got the same because 123 kilometers is not 7.44 miles. And if you actually delete the 3, for example, you get the value of the 123, etc., etc. So everything is one step behind. As you can see, it doesn't actually work as expected. By the way, if you're finding this video helpful, a like would be really, really appreciated. Also, if you want to become a better programmer, subscribe to the channel as well. I'll be posting a lot of really interesting videos and you don't want to miss them. So we need to find a way to call the convert function after the value has been assigned to the entry and after the validation, basically. So we actually get the updated value and not the old value. And I actually came up with a solution. So instead of actually calling the convert value directly, I'm going to create a new method that just calls my convert value method after a delay so that it's run after all the validation takes place and after the value of the entry has been updated. When you call the convert value method, the entry has the new value and not the old one. So I'm going to do something like call convert value delay, something like that. Self. Of course, as you can see, I've added the event here because this will be the method that will be bound to the key press event. And we actually need to remove this from here like this. We don't need that anymore. And then we are going to do something like self mainframe after 100 self convert value like this. So basically this tells Tkinter to run the function, to run this function after a delay of 100 milliseconds. And this little delay makes it so that the self-convert value method is called after all the validation, etc., etc. And by doing so, you get the right value and not the old one. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And of course, now you need to bind this here to the key press. So we're going to go up here, key press event. I'm going to bind the call convert value delay, and let's see how this works. So let's see if that works as expected now. So 1, 2, 3, 4. As you can see, now that works as expected. And here you can see that you get the validation and then the number, the validation and then the number, the validation and then the number. So that little delay is all that's needed to actually make this work. And also there is another little problem. So if you've got a value already here and you change the value like that, you don't see anything here. You don't see the change. As you can see, this stays the same until you actually enter something, and then you see the change. As you can see, you need to enter something to actually see the change, and this is not what we want. We want to be able to change here and see here the right result according to the right conversion. And we're going to do this by tracing the conversion string var, but before we can actually delete the validation here, and also down here, this thing here. We don't need that anymore. So let's actually go up here, down here like that. So def callback trace conversion args like that. We need to use args like this because we want to capture all the arguments that are passed by trace, but we're not actually going to use them, but we need to do that. Otherwise we get an error. And then here we can actually call the convert value again. So self convert value like that. And here, as you can see, we don't need the delay because all the variables already have the values from the last conversion. So the entry has already a value in there, etc., etc. So we don't need the delay, and we just can write the convert value like this. And of course, we need to use trace. So self conversion, which is the variable, the string var here, trace w callback trace conversion like that. And W means that we are tracing all the changes made to the string var. So basically whenever we change the value of the conversion in the option menu, and here we have the callback to call when you see a change. So let's actually try to run that. So now let's say that we have already 12. If we try to change here, as you can see, this changes accordingly like that. Because we are tracing, so whenever we do something like this and we change the value, the trace function sees that and calls this callback, and you call the convert value. As you already have the value in here, you don't need the delay, and you see the result there, okay? So now you have a fully functional converter, and this is incredibly cool. So now on the screen, you can see another really interesting video for you to watch and learn from. Don't forget to check out my Patreon and also like the video and subscribe to the channel as well for more videos like this, and I'll see you soon. Bye.